As you may have guessed, everybody can relax, by the way. Like, everyone's shoulders are like this. Everybody can like take a breath, and we're all trapped in this room. You're not going anywhere. We're going to talk about, unless you want to, novelty, as you may have deduced from this big slide. So what novelty is, what it does in your brain, and how you can harness it to help you come up with better ideas, bigger ideas, and just make things more fun for you at work. One big misconception about novelty is that it has to be like a huge, big thing. So like a giant volcano or like a big trip or something sizable, but that's not the case. There are, as with anything, there is a like a spectrum. On the first end of the spectrum, here are some examples. You're driving in traffic, or really not driving in traffic. You're just like standing there looking at stuff because there is traffic, and you see that's how it works. Am I right? So, in my experience as well, interesting. So you see a funny license plate, right? And that's like a little ping of novelty. That's very easy. You barely had to do anything. You just had to be there, like trying to get somewhere and not being able to do that. But there it is, and your brain lights up. Likewise, there is a walk that you can take, like Emiliano mentioned. So like a 10-minute little walk. You've been at your desk or you've been sitting for a while and you just want to get up and move around. So you go and you're going to see something new. You don't know what it is, but something new will enter your purview. So then we have like this second tier, and we're using like an archery metaphor, like a bullseye thing, whatever this thing is called. Do we have any archers? No. Okay. Well, we're going to call it the archery bullseye thing going forward. So slightly more like time committal, like a book reading, which could be like 30 minutes, or just paging through a book that sits on your desk that you never look at, kind of thing. We have going to a new restaurant, which might take a little bit more planning. You have to decide like what night of the week, or maybe you have to make a reservation, but still not a huge time commitment. And a field trip to a town near you, or a city near you, so maybe like a half day. So these are all really easy examples. You guys know how to do these things already. And then we have like the big ones. So it's like, I'm going to drop everything in my life and go travel for a year kind of thing. Or just I'm going to go on vacation somewhere far away. So that's sort of like an example of the novelty scale. So little moves, big moves. So we know how the size of novelty, but we actually haven't defined it. And the dictionary definition is a little boring, but it's basically anything new. So like new, unusual, original. So depending on our experience, what's novel for one person can be not novel for another, and vice versa. Very individual and on a scale. So we've got that figured out. And now I'll have a little water. Are we good? Everybody follows? It's okay to like emote, like to let me know that you're not frozen in time and space. Totally fine. So yeah, you can laugh, like things are great. Things are great. So I want to set up a couple basic truths. The first one is a big one, and that is that you, all of you, guys, gals, are innovators. So not the person next to you, not the person behind you. Everybody who's ever solved a problem, either creatively or just solved it. Like, you are an innovator. And you are in possession of novelty and also a need for novelty. So there's a big, simple reason why you need novelty. You have to think of ideas, because you have to problem solve. If you don't have ideas coming in, it's really hard to put novel ideas out. So that's like the big duh reason. Simple input output, but that's essentially the value proposition for novelty in a tiny little baby nutshell. Like, you can't have interesting stuff coming out if you don't put interesting stuff in. There's also a science reason, or a few science reasons. So 3 things happen in your brain when you experience novelty. And novelty, again, just any new thing that you encounter that you haven't encountered before. So it could be like you're walking along and there's like a, what is that called? Like a messenger bag in your way, and you're like, oh my God, it's in my way. Novelty, boom, that's it. It can be that small. The first thing that happens is your brain interprets any new stimulus as a potentially dangerous thing. So not like fight or flight level, but just enough to zero in on it. So basically what it does is prioritizes that stimulus and everything else moves to the background, and you experience this heightened sense of awareness, which in work terms is also called flow. The great thing about that is when you are in a state of flow or a heightened state of awareness, you get this not only for like the duration of the stimulus, so you're not like tripping over the thing and then it's done, it's over. You have the lingering effects for 15 to 30 minutes afterwards. So that's prime time for what we call brain plasticity, like the ability to learn and memorize. So basically you're jolting your brain into attention. So you should probably like put some stuff in it. And then the other thing that happens is dopamine is released. So that's tied to your reward and pleasure systems in your brain. And it's not a reward in and of itself, but incentivizes you to continue to look for rewards. So you enter into a new situation and you think, your brain thinks, this is like very much on a subconscious level, your brain thinks there might be a reward here, like there might be something going on here, I'm going to investigate. And if it does and there is no reward, it just jumps to the next thing. So it's like a biological incentive to keep looking for the next, for the next, for the next. So what happens during all of these processes is you're collecting influences and exposure to things and ideas, and they will feed your creative process. And we'll talk about more. I know you guys are maybe like a little metrics hungry, but we'll talk about those too. Those are science reasons, but there's also a fun reason. Number one, it is fun to experience new things. This is more of like the duh principles. We're going to cover these very thoroughly. So fun is a big one, and people who experience a lot of novelty bring that to the people around them in their world. So not only is novelty in itself more fun, but people who experience more of it like to share it, so they're also more fun. So that's, I see more nods for fun than like that weird brain stuff. We could have just taken all the science stuff out of there. The way that we experience novelty as adults is super segmented. So as kids, we have like our little novelty net and we just run around and we're encouraged to have new experiences all the time because that's how we learn. So for some reason, as adults, the assumption somewhere along the line gets made that that's no longer important, which I obviously disagree with because we're still learning and we still need new things in our lives. Instead, we have, that's not a like Flava Flav thing, that's like a clock, like a weight. I thought there might be confusion, but I thought I would just go with it. We have responsibilities and obligations, and our schedule is not so flexible, and there's no real cultural incentive for us to bring new things in. This is kind of like what being an adult looks like. We have like work, which is hopefully 5 boxes, and not work, which is 2. And I did all of the days because work isn't just being at work. It's like getting to work, sitting in traffic, making your lunch, like buying your work clothes, blah, 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 putting your kids to bed, yada, yada, yada. Like it goes on and on. So really those 5 days, and then you're exhausted. So those 5 days are really work days. And there's not a lot of novelty that goes on there because most of us go to the same place for work. So you've got like this sameness happening and you've got these rigid time constraints, and then you have expectations of being productive and like doing things. And then you have this little not work slice, which is where you have fun. But you have fun in, in ways that you already know how. So you go to another restaurant, or you go to another town, or you go paddleboarding or something like that. And those do definitely have dimensions of novelty, but they're repeated actions, and they only occur for most people in this like constrained period of time. And the access to novelty for adults is pretty easily explained, like why we don't do it at work essentially, because it's just more of a constrained environment. You don't have the freedom of time, you don't have the freedom of space. But it's really important, as we saw with all that crazy science junk, it's really important to access novelty when we're trying to work, because at work, what are we trying to do? Anybody? What do you guys try to do at work? Be innovative, solve problems. Great, yeah, exactly. So why novelty would be excluded from that equation is a little bit unclear. There's definitely a cultural thing going on where we still feel like work is done at a desk, seated in the same place, and that the number of hours you work counts for a lot, whereas what you produce somehow randomly counts for less. And that's just like some cultural stuff that we have to get over eventually, but we're still not there. So no novelty, which is sad. But you guys have individually the power to bring novelty to your work environments. And it comes down to one pretty easy conceptual thing. It's the see versus look principle. I see somebody giggling without giggles, just like a face giggle, which is totally good. So basically it's the difference between seeing something and just looking at it. If you look underneath your desks or tables, you will not see, you will find a piece of paper. Yes, which you should pull. Oh no, did you not get a piece of paper? You may have to share. Okay, so can everybody roll it into a rolled piece of paper?
Does anyone not get a sheet of paper?
You may have to hunt around for a sheet of paper near you.
You have to look for one?
You may have to look for one, yes. True story. So what do we have here? Like most basically. Anybody? A scroll. Yes, it's like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Even more basic than that. A telescope. See, that's a see. That's seeing and not looking. When we look, we see when we look, we have. We can't say when we look, we see. When we look, we observe a piece of paper that's rolled into a little thing, a Dead Sea Scroll. But when we see, we have a telescope. So try it out. Like see if you can go around the room, find something with your telescope, and see if you notice something that you didn't notice before with your newly, very excitingly limited field of vision. That's kind of fun, no? So that's like a little tiny baby novelty search that you just got. And that is the principle of seeing versus looking. So if we apply that example to a desk situation, maybe your desk is like this, maybe it's not, maybe it's cool or less cool, whatever. Someone who's just looking says, this is my desk, like this is where I come to do my work, this is what happens, right? Like everybody can imagine that happening. But someone who is seeing is going to take a different view. So they see their desk chair and they go, oh my gosh, it has wheels, like these guys, you can spin around, like something fun. Or they see that their cactus is having a new flower. Or, which happens like once in a blue moon. Or they have, as we just talked about, like a calendar notification and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to take this meeting, this thing that I already have to do, and I'm just going to put it into a walking meeting so I can do like a few birds with one stone, but also I get to see something new. And I get to move around and it's not the same old thing. This one is like an Austin specific thing, like, oh my God, a new building. This happens all the time. And then this happens a ton too. You can make like a novelty joke. That's a book. I just made it for you, sorry. Oops. So you can page through that, or you could read it. It's a lot of books, and I'm guilty of this myself, are just like desk ornaments, so that like you look like you're reading maybe, or you look smart, or like you have other interests out of work. But they're really great. There's like stuff in there too, which is awesome. I know, it's crazy. So I'm gonna put you guys to work, I think. Oh my gosh, I got the collaboration face. Yes, it's going to happen. So there are essentially, there are like infinite categories, right? But for our purposes, we'll keep it tiny and we'll do sort of 4 conceptual bearings. So taking a new route. So you can take a new route to work, or you can take a new route to the bathroom, or you can take a new route to your desk. Like again, it's on a scale that goes from teeny tiny to very significant and huge. And you can touch things. A cactus is not recommended, but to illustrate the point, that's sort of like a tactile engagement with the things around you. So you could move your desk around and see how that makes you feel. If you have like a different view that you switch up, what that does for the ideas and the thoughts that you have. Indulging your eyeballs. How many times have you guys walked past something and said to yourself like, oh, I want to look at that, or that's interesting, but you go, oh, but I can't. I have a meeting, or I have to do this, or like, oh, I don't want to like bend down and look at that because it's going to look weird because no one else is looking at it. Anybody? I see a nod. Yes. You can raise your scroll in solidarity. Very good. And then the last one's pretty straightforward. You talk to people. So you talk to someone you don't know, which will be easy to do here because I assume not everybody knows each other. And one of my favorite examples of that is the elevator, which can be like a very weird, quiet, dead zone, which is really uncomfortable for everybody. If you just break the ice, you have to be that guy or that gal, and you just do it. And you say, I'm going to talk to the people in the elevator. And I've actually had some wonderful conversations, and then I continue to be in touch with those people. So to develop your elevator presence, recommend it. So I heard some fun things. I heard about a sitting versus standing desk, like it gets, did I steal? I stole. Okay, do you want me to call on you? Should we rewind? We can rewind the tape, that's fine. So that maybe is in the touch things, or take a new route, like sitting route, standing route. I know someone came up with switching spaces. You had like a certain thing that you brought into the classroom. Oh. Yes? What was it? So let's talk about that for a minute. Like more workspaces like that was the comment. Why not? Why not add a dimension? So maybe, in your office you can't like roll out a big red carpet, but maybe you have like a little one and you like just between a few of you refer to it as like the magic carpet, or like when the magic carpet comes out, then it's time for, to take a walk or to take a break or to do something fun. Like there are all these little adaptations that you can do to make your work life less monotonous, more fun. So the question was when turning an elevator or another generally typically more silent place into an opportunity to get to know the people you work with better, or the people who are passing through your workspace. It is, there is a dimension of who's comfortable doing that. But you sort of look at the risk and reward. Like if you want to bring novelty in, you do have to put forth some effort, because there are things everywhere, but you do have to be able to see them, and then it's up to you to engage with them. So sometimes the things are people, if that makes sense. And you just say, like you find a common point of contact. So if Caro and I were in the elevator together, I would say, I really like your shirt. And then we would talk about something else, because I'm sure she does more than just wear shirts. But that's the lead-in. You just take something tiny, and then you make a larger step from there. How do you do this with a stranger? So you could do either of those. So leading with a compliment is a great way to do it. Like, I love your shoes. Let's talk about politics kind of thing. Maybe that segue would not be so maybe there would be a few extra steps in there. But if you do talk about yourself, you could just say, I don't know what floor to go to, or can you help me, or what do you think about this co-working space, or something where you kind of know the answer already, but it just gives you like a little foot in the door. Did anyone come up with anything wild and crazy that they want to share? Either something that they can think of doing now that they wouldn't have thought of before? Whoa, that's wild, actually. Can everyone like simulate that? That a little bit blew my mind. I'm gonna try that later and report back to you. That sounds tricky. That's like brushing someone else's teeth. Have you ever tried to do that? That's really not easy. What's that? You could also do that. Yes, did everybody hear that? So bringing pets into the workplace, which, in some places is still not okay, but in a lot of places, they bring them in. So if let's say your workplace doesn't allow pets, what do you do? Stuffed animal. Stuffed animal, good, yes. What else?
Ask for forgiveness. Plants.
Ask for forgiveness, like sneak one in. Plants.
Change everyone's desktop wallpapers to pets.
Change everyone's desktop wallpapers to pets. That's a good one. That's a definite exercise in novelty. Success! You guys just exercised your brains. That is a brain wearing a sweatband with like a muscle thing going on. It's nothing big, right? It's these tiny micro adjustments, but setting your life up in a way at work where you have access to like little tips and tricks to get you out of the mundaneness of being at work. And once you go for little things, like making this beautiful paper airplane, thank you so much, which maybe I will, oh no, gosh, aviation mistake. Oh, here comes another one, excellent. That was beautiful. Let's see if we can, who wants it? Okay. Oh. That is why I do not fly. Yes. So, but the point is, like, they're tiny little things, even as simple as making a paper airplane and throwing it at somebody, but your brain will want more. Like, the dopamine kick will encourage more exploration. So you're gonna rise to like bigger and better little novelty challenges, and that just brings more stuff into your brain that you can put out in terms of ideas. Metrics. Yes, we love metrics. This is a really simple one. I wish it worked this way, but it just doesn't. So like if the novelty increased and proportionally the sex, power, and money, in whatever order it is important to you, also increased, that would be great, but it's just not that quantitative. Like you will never really be able to measure like, okay, I did 3 novel things today, and that means that my profits will increase by 17%, and my efficiency will increase by 24%, and my likability will increase by like tenfold. It's just not that quantitative or that linear. It's a really soft science. So really what you're doing is just betting on yourself. You're letting as much in as you possibly can to like keep your brain sharp, and you're just giving yourself the opportunity to experience a lot of different things in hopes that they will turn into ideas later. You just won't be able, the likelihood of tracing that line back is very, very, very tiny. To wrap, a few really, really simple concepts, which I think you guys already know. And some like weird hand gestures and stuff. Novelty is everywhere. Even in a space that maybe some of you have already been to, even in the office that you go to every day, it's just everywhere. It's just a matter of seeing it rather than looking at it as you normally would. And basically what you're doing is building a stronger brain. You're building a more functional and more like hungry brain, because novelty just begets more novelty. You have to continually challenge yourself. Once you start like with the little 5-10 minute things, you're going to need a novelty boost that's like the 2 or 3 hour thing, and then you're going to need to quit your job and travel the world forever. It's just how it works. There's nothing I can do. And then novelty is for work. So remember the sort of like 5 days of work and 2 days of, or I guess this way, of non-work. So we want 7 days of novelty. We want the whole thing to be like awash in beautiful novelty. And I hope you guys have gotten a few little tricks, or just like a little fun in your evening, and maybe met some new people. And if you do take any of this stuff on, I really want you to tell me. So you could like come whisper in my ear if you know where I live. It's a little strange. You could email me, you could tweet me. Some people do know where I live. That is weird, okay. Please don't all come to my house. But get in touch. If you put any of these into practice in your work life or in any other way, like if you just discover little novelty tricks on your own, bring them to me, because I want to know what they are. And then if you want a little novelty cheating, you could just sign up for my email newsletter. It's very short, there are a lot of pictures, and it's like pretty infrequent. But little weird links to things and like fun projects and all this kind of stuff. So that's it, you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our organizers. Thank you to Capital Factory for having us. And do have fun and novelty and all kinds of things. Thanks, you guys. You can clap if you want to. Stop. And that's it. Questions? Yes. I love questions and crayons.